Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the latest update on Vashtorr the Arkifane. Obviously we're going to be talking news here, so no real need for a spoiler warning, and with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. So in the latest copy of White Dwarf magazine, there's a pretty interesting little piece on Vashtorr the Arkifane, an investigation being conducted into him by Inquisitor Kotiaz. It doesn't provide us with all the answers we're seeking, of course, as it's reports from the Imperium's point of view. However, it does contain a few highlights of interest, things that are definitely worthy of conversation. Now, to start with, and perhaps the biggest piece of information that piqued my interest, was that we're told reports are flooding in from across Segmentum Pacificus, from forges, manufactorums and mines, of essentially the facilities turning against their workers, of furnaces sprouting limbs and slaughtering the populace. And we saw Vashtorr unleash such attacks during the Arks of Omen campaign, turning the Imperium's technology against themselves. And the mention of Segmentum Pacificus is surely not just a coincidence. That this is quite clearly a coordinated assault by the Arkifane on this region. That it is in some way integral to his plans. Now, Segmentum Pacificus is to the west of the Imperium, close in proximity to Segmentum Solar, so its defense is paramount. And there is also the fact that it's currently the main location of Leviathan's emergence and assault. Yes, the Tyranids are emerging from several regions to the west and the south of the galaxy, but it's undoubtedly Pacificus that is bearing the full force right now, the location of the Imperium's desperate fightback. So, Vashtorr's assaults here, which would cause huge problems at any time, right now could be catastrophic, causing major disruption to a vitally needed supply line. The question is here, is Vashtorr timing this intentionally, making the most of the Tyranid's assault? Or is it simply coincidence he appears to be working within Pacificus at the same time? Well, either is of course possible. However, if we've learned anything from Vashtorr's appearance during the Arks of Omen, he seems just as selfish and fixated on his own ambitions as the four major gods of the Pantheon he wishes to join. So I'd find it hard to believe this isn't entirely because Vashtorr needs something from Segmentum Pacificus, that it serves his own goal in some way. I doubt highly it has anything to do with the Tyranid advance. However, of course that is just my opinion, and of course I could be wrong. Now, the second real highlight for me is that the same report relays that the Adeptus Mechanicus have had entire groups turning to and preaching on innovation and enhancement. Of course, outright heretical ideas to Mars. So not only is the Imperium itself being assaulted, the Mechanicus is facing a pretty large-scale revolt too. At worst losing valuable forge worlds, at best having to waste time and resources stamping out this heresy. Again, all things the Imperium just doesn't need within Segmentum Pacificus right now. It's always felt like Vashtorr would be the Mechanicus' biggest threat, and I'm surprised we haven't seen this form of issue being a bigger problem over the recent events. But I guess Vashtorr has been pretty busy. Either way, it does give you vibes of the Dark Mechanicum being able to capitalize on this situation. I mean, if we go back to the tease of Vashtorr's arrival, I certainly thought it could be Kelbor Hal, the head of the Dark Mechanicum, or the True Mechanicum as they call themselves. I'd certainly still love to see him return to the lore in some way at least, and I do think we will at some point in the future. But in reading those reports of heretical calls for enhancement and innovation, I have to be honest, I also couldn't help but think how similar that is to a certain philosophy of a Belisarius call. Not only reaffirming how borderline heretical call is, but also how maybe this could begin to affect his own calls. We've already seen further reports of his heretical actions being sent to Mars within his most recent novel, Genefather. If Vashtorr's actions continue to lead to a growing number of outbreaks of heresy, well, Belisarius Cawl could find himself an unwitting victim of it, with him being blamed for this outbreak of innovation sweeping the Forge Worlds, rather than Vashtorr. Let's remember the knowledge of Vashtorr, just like the rest of Chaos, is highly classified and hidden. So this could be a real interesting thread to see unravel as we move forward. Another piece of interesting information is the continued appearances of Wormwood, Vashtorr's demonic copy of Old Caliban. Now, Wormwood has been appearing across the Imperium, bursting forth into the galaxy, causing huge repercussions when it does so. As a literal planet, the forces of gravity it unleashes on a neighbouring world are devastating, world-ending. And then there's the warp, and all the dangers that come with it. It's akin to a demonic Death Star, literally causing the end of worlds and systems wherever it appears. The only saving grace is that it appears its appearances don't seem to be as concentrated on one part of the galaxy, nor do they seem to be along any logical pattern. So this isn't just happening within Segmentum Pacificus. So it appears Wormwood is still very much being used to seek Abaddon and Vashtorr's mysterious lock, with Wormwood being the key. And as we know, it appears to be travelling between realms, akin to the Webway, perhaps using the Webway itself, or quite simply destroying it. And thus far, we're still waiting for any big movement or action from the Eldari on this matter. There remains the distinct possibility they are indeed fighting the forces of chaos within the Webway, which I still think is highly possible and most likely. It's maybe even the reason Wormwood crashes out of the subrealm back into the galaxy. Who knows? Maybe forced out by the Eldari. The faction has been ominously quiet as a whole, Ynnari and Drukhari alike. We're told here of recent approaches to the Inquisition by Eldari representatives. However, it's not clear if that's new approaches, or if it's referring to the same one as mentioned at the end of the Arcs of Omen. So there's still a little bit more development and unveiling needed on just what's going on with the Eldari in this area. Considering we've seen Ilian Nataze as part of Guilliman's advisor council, I'd assume Eldrad has at least been conversing with Guilliman directly on the matter, or at the very least sent out feelers for his support and aid. But again, at the moment, we're still waiting for an update on Guilliman too, the last being his message to Belisarius during the novel Genefather, that he was on the eve of launching his crusade across the rift. If he has spoken with Eldrad regarding Vashtorr, it would seem it's a concern that's taking very much a second place to Guilliman's reconquest of Imperium Nihilus. And the final highlight from the Inquisition's investigation for me is a specific mention to how Vashtorr's attacks and actions aren't just limited to the Imperium. how wormwood has appeared within the Pariah Nexus, which the Inquisition are hopeful causes huge issues for the Necrons, who they have admittedly been struggling against. The enemy of my enemy, I guess. And then there's also mention of the Leagues of Votann and Tau Empire too, both appearing to be struggling with their own technology, facing the same form of issues as has beset the Imperium, their machines and battlesuits turning against them. Nothing more than that right now, but just reaffirming how Vashtorr is a big problem for the entire galaxy. That his influence can, and appears is, spreading like a virus or plague. That wherever technology exists, it can be victim to the Arkifane. And that makes sense to see the Leagues of Votann and Tau struggling with this specifically, two highly technology dependent factions. So all in all, not a huge step forward, but definitely some interesting avenues. The plight of Segmentum Pacificus, and the troubled circumstances within the Mechanicus, each with some tantalizing avenues and repercussions. The effects on the war against the Tyranids in Pacificus, and the possibility of Belisarius's own fate in the Mechanicus, being tied into events beyond his control, let alone a possible resurgence of the Dark Mechanicum to the wider stage. And we're surely nearing the point very soon that the truth of the Eldari's actions will become clear. That we will see just what kind of toll Vashtorr's actions are taking on their race. More questions than answers right now, but some extremely interesting possibilities, and a few little highlights on just what Vashtorr has been up to. As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below on just what you think Vashtorr is up to. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow, and if you enjoyed this particular vid then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.